The tech world is currently shaking to its core because a group of high-level Apple engineers just pulled back the curtain on something Microsoft has been trying to bury for months. We are talking about a discovery so massive it has reportedly sent Bill Gates into a total tailspin and forced a complete re-evaluation of the upcoming Windows 12 launch. If you thought Windows 11 was a bumpy ride, wait until you hear what is actually hiding inside the early builds of the next-generation operating system. While Microsoft has been publicly shouting from the rooftops about artificial intelligence and seamless cloud integration, these engineers from Cupertino, who spend their lives dissecting operating system kernels, found a digital Trojan horse hidden deep within the code architecture. This is not just a bug, it is not a glitch, and it is certainly not an accident. It is being described as Microsoft's biggest cover-up in the history of personal computing, a secret bridge that changes everything we know about data privacy and how our hardware actually functions. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to dive deep into the technical forensic evidence that has the Silicon Valley elite whispering behind closed doors. We will look at why Bill Gates is reportedly panicking about the public's reaction and how Apple managed to expose a project that was supposed to stay classified until 2025. This is the stuff that changes the industry forever. So buckle up, because the Windows 12 cover-up is finally coming to light. To understand the scale of this stunning revelation, we first have to look at the tension between Microsoft and Apple's engineering teams. Usually these two giants exist in their own bubbles, but Windows 12 was meant to be the first OS that truly challenged Apple's silicon dominance. Microsoft's goal was to make Windows 12 run perfectly on ARM-based chips, finally giving PC users the battery life and speed of a MacBook Pro. However, when Apple's internal Red Team engineers began stress testing the leaked Windows 12 development kits to see how they would interact with cross-platform apps, they hit a wall. A wall made of obfuscated logic gates. They discovered that Windows 12 isn't just an operating system, it is a hypervisor-first environment. What does that mean for you? It means that for the first time, your computer is not actually running the OS on your hardware. Instead, a hidden layer of Microsoft-controlled code sits between your CPU and everything you do. This discovery has sent shockwaves through the tech community because it implies that Windows 12 could essentially turn every PC into a glorified terminal for Microsoft servers, and they never intended to tell you. Bill Gates, although no longer the day-to-day CEO, remains the spiritual and strategic architect of Microsoft's long-term visions. Insiders suggest that his panic stems from the fact that this discovery ruins the narrative of user empowerment that Microsoft has cultivated for decades. The Apple engineers exposed that this hidden hypervisor layer has a direct backdoor channel to Azure servers, which is active even when you are offline. They are calling it a shadow kernel. This isn't just about telemetry or tracking your clicks. This is about hardware-level control. Imagine a world where Microsoft can decide to throttle your hardware if you aren't using approved apps, or worse, where they can freeze certain functions of your processor remotely under the guise of security updates. This is the biggest cover-up because Microsoft has been branding Windows 12 as the AI OS, but Apple's findings suggest it is actually the Control OS. Why would Apple engineers go public or allow this information to leak? Because this discovery threatens the very foundation of the open PC ecosystem. Even Apple, with its closed garden, respects the boundary between the hardware you bought and the software you run. The Windows 12 shadow kernel blurs that line until it disappears. The engineers found that Windows 12 uses a new type of encryption handshake that constantly pings Microsoft's central headquarters. If that handshake fails, the OS begins to degrade the performance of your machine. This is stunning because it transforms the concept of ownership into a subscription to functionality. Bill Gates and the Microsoft board are supposedly terrified that if the average user understands that their owned hardware is being held hostage by a hidden software layer, the fallout will be worse than the Windows Vista and Windows 8 disasters combined. Let's talk about the technical breadcrumbs that led to this exposure. Apple engineers were investigating how Windows 12 handles contextual awareness. Microsoft has been bragging that Windows 12 will understand what you are doing to help you be more productive. But when the engineers looked at the data packets being sent through the system bus, they found that the OS was capturing pre-encrypted buffer data. In simple terms, Windows 12 is seeing what you type and what you see before it even gets encrypted by your browser or your VPN. This deep packet inspection at the kernel level is unprecedented for a consumer operating system. It is a privacy nightmare disguised as AI optimization. The Apple team realized that Microsoft is building a God view of every single Windows user, and the cover-up involves hiding this capability behind thousands of layers of complex, AI-generated code that is nearly impossible for a human to audit. The social and economic implications of this Windows 12 discovery are massive. For years, Microsoft has been playing second fiddle to Apple in terms of cool factor and design. Windows 12 was supposed to be their big comeback story. But if the stunning truth is that Windows 12 is actually a tool for corporate centralization, the trust gap will become an ocean. Bill Gates has always been a proponent of using data to solve global problems, but applying that same logic to individual privacy and an operating system is a bridge too far for the engineering community. The panic in Redmond is real because their golden goose has been exposed as a spyware machine before it even hit the shelves. This isn't just tech gossip. This is the future of liberty in the digital age. Apple engineers didn't just find these back doors. They found ghost processes. These are programs that don't show up in your task manager. They don't consume visible RAM, and they don't appear in any system log. They operate in the ring zero of the CPU, the most protected part of the processor. This exposed secret reveals that Microsoft has been working with hardware manufacturers like Intel and AMD to bake Windows 12 hooks directly into the silicon. This level of vertical integration is something even Apple hasn't attempted. It means that if you try to install Linux or an older version of Windows on a designed for Windows 12 machine, the hardware will literally underperform because the shadow kernel isn't there to give the permission signal. This is the end of the open PC as we know it, and Microsoft has been trying to hide this hardware handcuff strategy for a long time. Let's break down the Bill Gates reaction. According to reports from within Microsoft's Seattle campus, the mood is apocalyptic. They had a roadmap that led to a 2024 reveal, but with Apple engineers circulating this technical paper among the top tier of the cybersecurity world, Microsoft's PR machine is in meltdown mode. They are trying to rebrand these control layers as essential safety protocols for the age of AI, but the tech community isn't buying it. A safety protocol doesn't need to hide from the task manager. A safety protocol doesn't need to report back to Azure every 60 seconds. The cover-up is falling apart because the technical truth is too loud to ignore. This is a clash of titans where Apple's engineers have essentially acted as digital whistleblowers. How does this affect the average user? Most people just want their computer to work. They want to check their email, play games, and do their job. But the Windows 12 reality means that your latent computing power might be used by Microsoft for their own cloud training without you ever knowing. Apple engineers discovered a resource siphoning algorithm in the Windows 12 alpha builds that borrows small percentages of your GPU and NPU power to perform background tasks from Microsoft's wider AI network. This is essentially forced distributed computing. You are paying for the electricity, you are paying for the hardware, but Microsoft is harvesting the results. This is a stunning violation of the end-user license agreement philosophy, and it is the heart of the big cover-up. The stunning part is just how far the deception goes. Microsoft has been inviting tech influencers and journalists to see controlled demos of Windows 12. In these demos, the OS looks lightning fast, the AI is helpful, and the interface is beautiful. But Apple engineers pointed out that these demo builds have the shadow kernel disabled. They are showing the world a Potemkin village. When the actual retail version launches, the hardware tax will be applied, and users will see their high-end machines performing like mid-range laptops because of the background processing required by the cover-up infrastructure. This is calculated performance degradation for the sake of data acquisition. Why is the Apple engineer exposure so credible? Because these are the people who designed the M1, M2, and M3 chips. They know exactly how instruction sets are supposed to look. When they saw the anomalies in the Windows 12 code, they knew it wasn't just lazy programming. They recognized a sophisticated surveillance architecture. They found that Windows 12 creates a virtual twin of your hard drive in the cloud, syncing metadata of every file you possess, even if you never use OneDrive. This metadata mirroring allows Microsoft to categorize your entire life without actually opening your files in a traditional sense. They can say they respect your privacy because they don't read your letters, but they know exactly who you are writing to, how often, and what the tone of the metadata suggests. It is privacy through loophole. The panic in Bill Gates' circle also relates to the legal fallout. If Apple's engineers can prove that Microsoft is purposely throttling third-party software to favor Microsoft Edge or Microsoft Office at the kernel level, it will trigger the largest antitrust case in human history. We are talking about fines that could reach the hundreds of billions. The cover-up isn't just a marketing choice, it is a survival instinct. If the Windows 12 architecture is revealed to be inherently anti-competitive, Microsoft could be forcefully broken up by regulators. This is why the Apple exposure is so dangerous. It provides the technical roadmap for government investigators to follow. Let's look at the user experience under this new Windows regime. Imagine you are a creative professional. You use the Adobe Creative Cloud. Under the Windows 12 cover-up architecture, the engineers found that the OS can redirect NPU cycles to ensure that Microsoft Copilot runs smoothly, even if it means your Premiere Pro render takes 30% longer. The system prioritizes the Microsoft ecosystem not by being better, but by starving the competition of resources. This is silent sabotage. Apple's team realized that if this becomes the standard, then innovation dies because Microsoft will have a monopoly on performance. It is a stunning shift from productivity tool to economic engine for Microsoft. What happens next? The battle for Windows 12 is currently being fought in code repositories and server rooms. Microsoft is reportedly scrubbing the most obvious backdoors found by the Apple team, but the core foundation of the OS is already hardwired for this control model. To fix it would mean delaying the launch by years, but a delay would signal defeat to the investors. This is the billion-dollar dilemma. Bill Gates and Satya Nadella are caught between a public relations nightmare and a technological failure. The cover-up has become a prison for the company itself. We have to ask, why did Apple engineers take the time to do this deep audit? Is it just corporate warfare? No, it's about the standardization of computing. If users get conditioned to believe that their OS should have a shadow kernel, then the pressure for Apple to follow suit becomes immense. By exposing the truth, Apple is protecting its own philosophy. They want a world where hardware and software are transparent to the user. The Windows 12 cover-up represents a divorce from reality, where the user is no longer the administrator of their own machine. It is a stunning evolution of the software-as-a-service model into hardware-as-a-service. The Windows 12 cover-up also extends to the environment. Apple engineers found that the constant cloud syncing and shadow processing increased the power consumption of a laptop by nearly 15%. In an era where sustainability is a key selling point, Microsoft has been faking the data. They claim Windows 12 is the greenest OS ever, but they are only measuring the visible processes. The carbon footprint of the shadow kernel is being hidden in the global Azure overhead. This greenwashing is another stunning layer of the biggest cover-up in tech. As we move closer to the official Windows 12 reveal, the tension will only grow. Every tech blogger and reviewer will now be looking for the signs of the shadow kernel. The Apple exposure has given us the lenses to see through the marketing smoke and mirrors. We are no longer passive consumers of Microsoft's narrative. We are active observers of a crisis. Bill Gates and his team can panic, they can recode, and they can cover up. But the digital truth has a way of leaking out. The exposed secrets of Windows 12 are a wake-up call for everyone who uses a computer. The engineering forensic report from the Apple team also mentions something called Project Sentinel. This is supposedly the internal name for the cover-up at Microsoft. Project Sentinel was designed to monitor and mitigate any attempts to decompile the Windows 12 kernel. This means Microsoft built security software whose only job was to prevent people from seeing what the OS is actually doing. It's Inception for privacy invasions, a guard dog for the hidden door. When the Apple engineers bypassed the Sentinel, they found a treasure trove of user profiling tools that are mind-blowing in their granularity. Will Windows 12 survive this exposure? History shows that users have a short memory, but enterprises do not. If government agencies and big banks realize that their secure Windows machines are draining data back to Microsoft Azure through a shadow kernel, they will abandon the platform instantly. This is the core of the panic. It's not about the home user finding out. It's about losing the enterprise market, which is the backbone of Microsoft's wealth. The Apple engineers have put a target on Microsoft's most valuable asset, trust. To conclude this stunning tech deep dive, we are at a pivot point. Windows 12 is either going to be a masterpiece of user control or the end of the Microsoft hegemony. The cover-up has been exposed. The Bill Gates panic is real, and the Apple engineers have done the world a service by shining a light on the shadow kernel. As we wait for the official launch, keep your eyes on the update logs. Look for the anomalies. And remember, your hardware should work for you, not for a server in Seattle. This is the biggest tech story of the decade, and it is only just beginning. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and don't let the marketing cloud your judgment. The Windows 12 reality is here, and it is stunning.